When he was born, I had a C-section. He was breech, and he's a Scorpio. So I think that explains why he was breech.
Is this podcast episode sponsored by Abby Jimenez?
Well, I'll have to DM her to find out. But my doctor goes, he's blonde. And I'm like, babies aren't blonde.
How do I get more leads?
How do I stand out in my market?
Is it unprofessional to talk about my kids on Instagram?
Should I have one account or two?
Do I really need a personal brand as a real estate agent?
We are the Modern Agent Marketing Girls. We are two agents turned marketing experts who believe you can become the go-to real estate girl in your market, all because you are you. I'm Chelsea Peterson, founder and CEO of Modern Agent Social Club.
And I'm Kayla Fox, Modern Agent's content creator. Let us be your guide as we talk about what it means to market your real estate business the modern way.
So refill your favorite beverage, open your notes app, and get ready to build a business and a brand you're obsessed with. Let's go.
Hi, Kayla.
Hey, Chelsea. Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Agent Marketing Girls podcast. We're almost 20 episodes in now. Do you realize this?
No, I don't, because we're always so far ahead. I have no clue what number we're recording.
This is episode 19, and it's wild to me because I feel like we've covered so much ground already, but we also have like so many more ideas on the docket that it's like, how do we get all of these in?
It's one of those things where I feel like I've been doing this for way longer than I have, but it also feels like we just started at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's just so fun.
Yeah, I like your mug today. Can you show YouTube your mug?
Thank you. Oh, look at here's YouTube. Henry's mama.
I forgot when he looked like that. His sweet little bald head.
He had like no hair. Well, when he was born, I had a C-section. He was breech, and he's a Scorpio. So I think that explains why he was breech. Aren't they stubborn? Isn't that the...
I have no idea. I don't follow any.
All I know is my own astrology sign, and then I know Scorpio because I looked it up when he was going to be one. But anyways, when he was born, my doctor goes, he's blonde. And I'm like, babies aren't blonde.
Oh, that's funny.
He just had like little peach fuzz, and it was like blonde. But I'm like, Mark and I don't have dark hair, so I guess that makes sense.
That's hilarious. I love that. That's so cute. Yes, this is the week of Mother's Day here in the U.S. at least. And so we thought we would do a fun little episode kind of tying marketing, motherhood, branding, all the things together, all of our favorite parts of our lives together. So I'm excited about today's discussion.
I am too. And we talk so much about personal branding. We talk so much about bringing your real life into your brand. And like, that's how you connect. And we get a lot of questions about motherhood and, should I have my kids be part of my brand? Is it unprofessional? How much should I show them? Or what if I don't want to show their faces? So we're going to kind of dive into like all the things that will help you leave today with a plan of what to do if you do want to make motherhood part of your brand. So I think it'll be fun.
Totally. I think before we get started though, I need to hear how you joined the mom club. What's your like journey into motherhood, Chelsea?
Well, I know I've talked about how I've always wanted to be a mom. Like that was my dream job. I didn't have no job title was interesting to me, just mom life. But I couldn't become a mom when I was 14, or 8 when I had.
Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever way you want to look at it.
This is like crazy. I just thought of this. I had these, I would get catalogs in the mail, like Pottery Barn Kids, and I would like circle the baby stuff I wanted. And I was probably like 6th grade. Like I want this crib. I want this stroller. I want this, whatever. And it's just so full circle now to be like, I just ordered this thing from Pottery Barn Kids, and like it's been in my brain for my whole life. Anyways, my journey to motherhood, it was a longer journey for us. We got married and we thought like, let's just start trying right away. We had been together for a while, so we were like ready to start a family, and it just wasn't happening for us. And after a few years, we finally said like, let's talk to a fertility specialist. I'm in my 30s. We have to get going. Like I really want a family, and I wanted several kids at the time, and I still do. I just don't know if that's possible. Biological clock ticking. But anyways, we started that conversation, did all the testing, did all the things, kind of said like, we're going to take a month before we start this, and we're going to go on vacation and just like kind of relax. So we went to Cabo, and I came home, and a few weeks later I was pregnant, or found out I was pregnant. So thankfully and luckily that happened for us. I know that's not always the case for everyone, and I went through many years feeling that same feeling. Well, now Henry is 2. So I'm Chelsea, Henry's mom. He's 2.5. And we want more kids. And we tried the whole Cabo plan again and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So it was just a one-time thing for that circumstance, but I am so grateful to be a mom. I love being a mom. I love motherhood. It has definitely been a struggle to balance business with motherhood because it's just something you've never dealt with before. And it's really crazy because the same exact thoughts that I had probably my entire first year and a half of being a mom, I constantly see other people share. Like, I know I haven't really been here in a while, and like,
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to handle coming back from, having a baby and going right back into business and sharing online. And it's just wild because it's just such this connection point and such this thing that we all go through as moms, as business owners, when we try to navigate the juggle coming back. And I know that so many people can relate to that. So,
Totally.
but I want to hear about your journey
Oh gosh. There's a lot.
or your four of them.
I know. I know. Yeah, mine is the opposite of yours, but I also have, sister-in-law, lots of friends who've gone through lots of like losses and stuff too. So I've always felt grateful, but then you haven't had that like survivor's guilt. Like, oh, I kind of feel bad that it was easy. But with every child, with every journey, with everything, there's always something, right? And so yeah, Brett and I was the same way as you. Like I dreamed of being a mom more than I dreamed of being a wife. And I remember Brett and I had looked at rings and we were kind of like, we even had kind of almost like basically picked our wedding date before he officially proposed. And I remember exactly where I was. We were driving down the road and something was said about our kids having the last name Fox. And I turned to him and I said, "You're the father of my children." And he was like, "What did you think I was?" And I was like, "I've always talked about my children and what I was going to name them and what I was going to have. I never thought about like you being a part of that equation." Like it just all like hit me at once. But I was the same way. And now it's so funny because I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and my girls will now like draw their families and they like name their babies. And it like warms my heart because I'm like, I remember doing that exact same thing. But yeah, so we were married about a year. According to Brett, he was like, "We're going to wait 2 years before we whatever, start trying." And I was just really glad that it just happened just the way that it did because I wanted them sooner. And so I was actually at work one day and I was talking to a client. I was doing hair at the time. And she had said something about like her period. And I remember thinking to myself, like, been a little bit since I've had one. That's weird. And I like on my way out home for lunch, I'd stopped at like Kroger or Target or something to get a pregnancy test. And I came home and I just kind of took it kind of on a whim. And then of course was like shocked to see that I was pregnant with my first. And I had to go back to work. And the whole time I was just thinking like, it's written all over my face. Everyone's got to know. And of course, no one had any idea. But it was fun to like surprise him with that. And then what's funny is, not trying with him and getting pregnant, but then, and he's Levi, by the way. We'll like put pictures on YouTube so you guys can kind of see who we're talking about. So he is now, he's almost 12, which is really wild. He's like a man child, which is nuts, although he always has been. And then I had Caroline, but with her, like we tried for several months and wasn't getting pregnant with her. And so I had, a very small glimpse of like what that was like. But basically my hormones were just all messed up after having Levi. And then, yeah, Luke and Lottie came along and, Lottie first. It was basically like every 2 years kind of until I had my youngest who I remember putting Lottie down for a nap when she was like 4 or 5 months old. And I'd had like one period and then didn't have another one, which I thought that's kind of early to like start back in it. I was still breastfeeding and all of that. And I had like a random test in my medicine cabinet or whatever in my bathroom and I took it and I was like, I saw that it was positive and I remember thinking, but I can't have a baby in here because I have my baby over there. Like I just put my baby down. How do I have another one? So yeah, so basically all 4 of them were born in just a little over 5 years. And so it was wild. I was a hairstylist at the time. And at that time I was like working from home by the time I got pregnant with him. Well, before that. And it was great. But also I was the same thing as you. Like you dream of something for so long and then it comes and it is different because by the time that we like had all of our kids, working from home like working in my home while doing hair, while having babies crawl around me, by wanting a snack, by needing a diaper change. Like it was so much. And I just remember telling my husband, like, I've got to do something different. And it was sad because I loved my job. But yeah, like every season of parenthood, every season of motherhood and childhood, it just brings new challenges. So
I love hearing that story. And 4 and 5 years is so wild. I always thought too, like, I know so many stories of friends who they struggled so long with their first one, and then the next ones were like bam, bam, bam. And I was like, well, maybe that will happen for me. Well, it's not
Mm-hmm.
part of my story right now.
Yep.
But it's just everyone's stories are so different. And I just think motherhood is fascinating, and the hard that comes with it, with the whole business thing, it's like
Mm-hmm.
so worth it. And I just think because of this topic, because of motherhood, and because we talk personal brands, I was really trying to think of like a good way to describe this. And I think like a personal brand is like the perfect blend of your business and your real life. So if you are a mom and you don't have your motherhood in your brand at all, it's almost like inauthentic. Like, wait, like it almost presents this like real estate robot vibe, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're just the agent, you're just the realtor, you're just the whatever. And obviously everyone has, you can do whatever you want with your personal brand, but I kind of wanted today's conversation to be around, if you want motherhood to be part of that brand, what does that look like? And it can look a million different ways. There is no black and white. This
Right.
is exactly what you're going to do if you're a mom and a realtor. Like there is no formula to that degree. But I think just kind of starting out, do we want to talk about like why? Like what are the benefits to making motherhood part of your brand? Is it unprofessional? Is it professional? And I think there's a lot we could talk about with this.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking it's so funny how you and I, even our stories are so different. But it's so funny how we totally get each other. Like even though like I'm in a stage of parenthood that you're not, as I say things about my kids, you probably are like, oh, I can imagine, because like moms just have those things in common. And so to start, I feel like it's such a great way to connect with people. Like, don't they always say like if you like move to a new community or something, it's almost easier to make friends if you have kids, because like even just like rubbing shoulders with like the other chaperones on the field trip, or who you talk to at the park or whatever. Like there's just that natural, it's like an easy buffer in the conversation, and it's an easy like segue into like, oh, me too, like kind of creating those moments, which is what social media is all about.
It's like you could have absolutely nothing in common, and then it's like, oh, you're a mom? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. Like we can relate on some level. And it's even funny, what else is funny about motherhood, and we were kind of discussing like what this episode should be about, but the different phases of motherhood do have different
Yeah.
connection points, relatability. Like for me, it's like talking to the moms that have toddlers that are like, should we do preschool? When should that start? Like, what is your routine? Like, what do you do? Like, there's like
Yeah.
talking, not like all the things. Whereas like school age kids is a whole different level. And then yesterday I was talking to my mom, and my brother went into the Marines, and I just remember she was so proud of him, obviously, but also like it was really hard. And he got hurt in boot camp and had to be there for an extra like 3 months. So it was like just really, really hard on my mom. And she was reading his old letters and like all emotional about it. And I was like, now I get it. Like,
Right.
no, Henry's nowhere near like joining the Marines or being at that age. But I also can just, my heart like
Yeah.
hurts for that thought of like my son leaving at 18, like
Yes.
it's just wild how you have different phases of different, or you connect with different moms of
Right.
different, ages and things like that. So I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that is what's so cool about it. So even no matter what capacity you want to share your motherhood in, it brings that human element, like what you said. So you can share it in a ton of different ways. When you think about what marketing actually is, it's really about meeting someone where they're at and like guiding them to a decision. And so what better place to meet someone where they're at when you're sitting at home on your phone while your kids are watching Bluey, or while you're folding laundry, and you connect with someone else who's doing the same thing, even down the street or across town. And then as you meet them where they're at and as you build that connection, then you're able to like position yourself as the guide and as the friend that they can count on, and get to know each other more through that. So like it's just such a cool, simple way to make friendships and be relatable online.
I think that the number one place where I would start, and this is what we're all about, is in the documenting over creating. So if you're going to bring motherhood into your brand, it can simply start in your stories. It's the documenting of what you did this weekend, what you love to do with your kids, where you live. It can even be what your kids love about your house. Like I love getting into, and I'm sure as agents you do this too, pay attention when you see something on Instagram where someone is selling their house and they're emotional about it. and there's this whole video and this whole caption, or they buy a new house and they talk about the story behind it or what transpired to make it happen and they're sad to sell, or like there's so much emotion in real estate that sometimes I think is completely forgotten
Yeah.
when agents are posting. And when we talk a lot about like, and we're not doing this to sound like mean, but like not relying so much on these educational real estate graphics that are like 5 steps to buying a house. It's because there's so much more to real estate than 5 steps to buying a house. There's the emotion behind like, well, my kids grew up here, or we're looking for a house because our family's growing, or the house that we sold before I moved here, my dad just died. And I was like, I felt so emotional about selling that house that we had for 12 years. There's so much that we don't think about, and we kind of focus on the transaction. But we've said it in another podcast, I can't remember the exact way you said this, Kayla, but about people buy with emotion and justify with logic. Is that how it goes?
You nailed it.
And when we can lead with that on social media, that makes our content so much more powerful and so much more relatable. So when you kind of even bringing that emotion of motherhood, or of like, I know it's going to be really challenging to sell that house where your kids grew up, or I know, like, speaking to that, because that's when someone's like, okay, she gets me. And I think there's so much to that can make your content almost inspiring in a way, because it's not just this like, I checked a box to post this thing, but like, I actually care about the situation that you're coming from or the situation that you have.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know about you, but the number of times that I showed houses to couples who brought their kids, or whose kids were having a meltdown, or they were just trying to see the house, but one was being so needy, and they didn't feel at all weird when I said, hey, let me take them to the backyard and play. You guys go look at the house. Or like, here, I brought coloring books, or whatever. Like, I was able to like help manage that situation and make it a more pleasant experience for them. But anyone can do that, of course. Like, it doesn't take a mom doing that. But I think that they trusted me faster because they knew, like, oh, she's got kids. Like, she understands.
Well, I think with being a mom, sometimes, like we just said, you like instantly have that connection point because you're like, okay, you're a mom too, you get it. Like, if I think about hiring an agent who didn't have kids, and I'm not saying I mean, I was an agent when I didn't have kids. Like, and I think I was a really good agent. But my point is, sometimes I think there's this comfort level working with another mom because you're like, okay, they're going to understand that it's not going to take me 2 seconds to get out of my house for a showing, or they're going to understand that my kid is coming to all these. So we need to like be mindful of this. I remember with these clients of mine, they were like a mutual friend or a friend of a friend. So I kind of knew them, but not really. But I ended up driving with them in their car to showings once, and it was easier. And I don't remember how it ended up happening, but they're at the time, like 6-month-old was in the back, just like screaming. So like I'm in the front with the husband, the wife is in the like switches with me to go in the back with the kid, and I was just like laughing. And I didn't have kids then, but I love kids. I had nieces and nephews and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like they were probably thinking like, oh my God, she probably like is like, I'm never talking to them again, which of course I wasn't. But
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I would have had kids, they'd be like, okay, she gets it. Like, no big deal.
Yeah.
But
No need to apologize.
yeah. And using that to your, like using that to your advantage with working with your clients and with showing your process and how you do things, and kind of calling out like different things about what you would do when there's kids involved, or like, hey, here's how we're going to help bring the kids into the process. Like, let's let them
Yeah.
get excited about getting their house ready, and like we're going to make the bed, and we're going to do this and that. Like, kind of just talking through how you incorporate kids into your real estate process, I guess, is something I would bring into it.
I feel like too, we can kind of talk about this in two different sections. I think first we can talk about like what capacity you incorporate your kids in, whether you're going to be a full out like mom brand or whether it's just going to be like kind of sprinkled in. Both are okay, but like how to make that decision. And then we can talk about like the angle in which you incorporate them. Like, is it going to be mostly to like show local places that your kids love, or is it going to be more about like how you balance motherhood and having a career and those kind of things? So I think if we first kind of talk about like the capacity, like I know for myself, as much as what I've always dreamed of being a mom, it's one of like my favorite things on the planet. I remember like when I had my own business, when I first had little kids, I remember thinking to myself, I know people are real interested what it's like having so many little ones at the same time while I'm trying to do this. I don't want to show that, because I remember thinking like my business was like my escape. Like I was like, no, I want to like work so I don't have to think about that. I just needed like to separate the two. And it was kind of like when I was pregnant, I always wanted to watch, and this was my first, but I always watched, remember A Baby Story on TLC?
I've never seen that, no.
Oh my gosh. It was like, if anyone knows that show, I know you're picturing like that belly turning around with like that purple curtain, and then music was like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like it was like a real like piano, but like it just documented people's stories on having like babies. And I watched it all the time. And then I remember after I had Levi thinking, if I hear one more baby cry after I put him to sleep, like I'm going to lose my mind. Like I just needed that escape. And so I knew that that was what worked well for me. But for other people, it's like, no, they would rather be in that capacity and like bring people in more and kind of document behind the journey. What about you? Like how have you balanced bringing motherhood and like Henry into like your brand and your business? Or when have you said like, you know what, this has nothing to do with like running a membership? Like how have you done that?
I honestly do it more from the capacity of I share behind the scenes in my stories, and I have like a little story highlight that says like CEO mama, and I'll say like every Thursday I have Henry, just me, and I say it's like my CEO mama day, and like here's what I'm doing during nap time, and here's what I'm trying to get done, like one AirPod in the morning, and like playing with him, but I'm listening to my business book or podcast or whatever. And then I'll do little things like I kind of have this like routine with it where like I'll share a lot like of just a snapshot of our morning, like our morning routine today, or like here's our Saturday morning, and it's whether we go to a coffee shop on Friday morning, and I'll always document that on repeat to where the coffee shop knows we do that. She's like, where were you last Friday? Like we didn't come. But just simple things like we're in his playroom, like that's usually where we start the very beginning of the morning, is we open the curtains in there, unless it's the dead of winter and it's dark till 7:30. But we go in there, open the curtains, we turn on the light, we play for a little bit, we go have breakfast. Like it's kind of like I'm sharing something in that bubble a lot of the time, just because it's easy to do. It's kind of this like calm start to the day. We're not rushing off anywhere yet. And then once the day gets going, like I'm too busy to kind of think about that or document it if it's not a Thursday, obviously, when I have him, just us two. So I think it's just a matter of like bringing people into the story of what you do. And I do think like when we talk about the topic of like, is it unprofessional or is it professional? Everyone's going to have a different opinion on this. This is just like one way that I think about it myself. Like I feel like there is a level of if you bring your kids into every single part of your brand, but you're a real estate agent, because remember, I'm like, real estate's the core. That's the foundation of what you're sharing. I think like that needs to be the core of what it is. If you're like a mommy account and it's a splash of real estate, that could be confusing. Like, well, does she have time for clients? Like, is she just like a mom blogger? So I think it is a fine line in a way of what you're doing. Like, and obviously this could be a million different directions, right? But you have to think about with all of this, your ideal client. Who are you trying to connect with in your community? Are they moms of young kids that are going to relate? Because the last thing you would want to do if you're trying to grow your business is make someone think you don't have time for real estate because of your kids. It is a fine line of like, you don't want to talk about how busy you are and how exhausted you are and how tired you are. You're selling someone's biggest investment, and that can probably go the wrong direction, right? So that's where I think people are afraid to bring the motherhood in, but we don't need to necessarily say everything that's going through our mind. Like, yes, there are many days where I got zero sleep and I'm exhausted, but I don't need to tell Instagram that. Like, Instagram doesn't need to know everything.
Right.
Instagram's going to know like a little splash of your life.
Exactly.
And I think that's maybe where there's this misconception that like, well, I'm very private. I'm a very private person, so I don't want to bring that into Instagram. And you can share about a layer of motherhood and be completely private. You could never show your kid's face. No one's ever going to know the whole story. Instagram is a little bit of a highlight reel, right? Like it is the highlight. It is the splash. So when you think about that, I personally like sharing a splash. Unless I wanted to be a full-blown mom brand and go that direction, it doesn't make sense to me to share everything.
Right.
Does that make sense? This is just like a literal conversation. So I'm not telling anyone what to do. It's just like a
Well, I like that though, because you've chosen your angle. So you choose to show it from the angle of like being a CEO mom. I know for myself, like when I got into like real estate and I had the kids, I remember for me, I was like, I've got to declutter my house and I want to like simplify things at home so much so that I can just do the things that matter to me. And so I shared so much about like decluttering, simplifying, how many toys does your kid really need or how many whatever. And people like I still will get text messages from like random people in my community to be like, look at the before and after of my closet. Like I remembered that. I did like a decluttering challenge and all of that stuff. So I was sharing motherhood, but I was tying it back to like real estate, tying it back to my business. I think you can also do this in other ways. Like I know there are people who are real passionate about like clean eating. And so just a small part of your brand can be like healthy things I fed my kids this week, or like, even like meals my kids love that they didn't know had vegetables in it, like something simple. And then as you are sharing that content, you can share like, as a busy real estate agent, I still want to prioritize my kids' meals. And so here's how I do this. So I think choosing an angle, and not that you can't ever share anything outside of that, but it helps make your brand less confusing. And it makes it more memorable. Like I never heard the phrase CEO mama until I met you, Chelsea. And now whenever I would hear anything about those two words, I would think of you, just like people in my community think of me when it comes to like decluttering and minimalism and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's exciting because I've been saying that since I had Henry. Like if you go to my story highlight, he's like a little bit tiny baby when I first started that. But since then, Natalie Ellis of Boss Babe has like a whole CEO Mama brand, and she has like a retreat and a mastermind, and like I thought about joining it actually, but I'm just like, shoot, like I feel like that's not my like thing anymore. But obviously, again, with motherhood, anything, it's such a generalized term. You're probably never going to find one that is like solely yours, because people are going to relate and they're going to, I'm not saying she saw mine. It's not that hard to come up with, I guess, but
Yeah.
that's like what I like to call mine, just to kind of have that mix, to have that balance. And again, with like what you're saying, not to be confusing, I think that's so important, because like even sharing, like I think about, like I love healthy food related topic, but I'm probably not going to make a post about it. You might notice like in my stories, or even like woven into a podcast episode where we talk about certain things that touch on like those subjects, where it's like it's a layer of your brand. It's that sprinkling of motherhood into your brand. It's not like all of a sudden tomorrow every post you have is going to be about being a mom.
Right.
The other thing that motherhood ties so much into for many of us is our why. And I think that's another angle for whether how you talk about it on Instagram or how you talk about it in an email or something like that, but like why you do what you do and how that relates to motherhood, or how, like maybe you do your job because you wanted flexibility, because you wanted to stay home part-time, because you wanted to have no income. If you're working a 9 to 5, they're like, here's your salary. This is how much you're going to make. That's it. Goodbye. Whereas like in real estate, you can do more. You could bring your kid onto your team someday. You could build a legacy around. I mean, like there's so much you could do. So like, what is your why with real estate that ties into motherhood? And that can be something that is just one angle of like something you talk about when you tell your story. Or, I like to think of like if you were on a podcast and you were telling your story of like why you got into real estate and why you do what you do, like what would you say? And use that a little bit into like how you're creating your content, or what you're putting out there when it comes to motherhood. Because there's probably going to be like a little snippet in there somewhere of like, oh yeah, that is why I do this. But sometimes we don't ever share that part, and we don't have to share everything, but it's like that little tiny part of it can be a big part of your story as to why you sell real estate or why you love what you do, that would connect with a lot of people.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that saying when you talk about like, you want to be professional, but you also want to be human. Like, where do you draw the line? Like, think about going to like a health coach and saying like, man, like I want to eat healthier. I want to feel better, but I really struggle with time, and I struggle with what to make, and I struggle with all those things. How would you feel if she looked at you and said, oh, me too. I struggle with all those things too. Wouldn't you feel like, okay, you're not the guide for me. Like, you can't actually help me. But instead of she said, I remember being in that exact same spot. Here's how I got out of it. Right. So they're speaking from like their scar and not like the fresh oozing wound, if I must. And so when it comes to like motherhood and sharing that into your brand while also still aiming to be professional, I think about like, okay, how can you say like, man, having a newborn is rough, but not getting on and saying like, I'm exhausted. I haven't slept at all. You know what I mean? And I think like just from that like specific example, I'm thinking like, how can you show like, hey, I got this offer submitted and now I'm like the baby and I are taking a nap. Or like now we're getting a little bit of rest. We're getting out of the house. We just need some fresh air. But you also are showing like you're still an active working agent.
We have to remember that sharing our lives and sharing the real life behind real estate doesn't mean that our lives are public. Like, even as an agent in general, sometimes it's like we are afraid to say no to something, or we're afraid to say no, we have plans. Like, all of a sudden we're saying, like, texting our friend, like, hey, I actually can't make it to girls' dinner because I have to go show a house, because we were afraid to say, like, I have an appointment or whatever. No one knows what's on your schedule. No one knows what is behind your closed doors. And I'm not saying we need to put fake stuff on Instagram, but no one needs to know the whole entire story. And that's where you have that line of professionalism. Because yes, you might have not slept at all, but if you're going to list a $1.5 million house tomorrow and they see your story of I didn't sleep at all,
Right,
for the
exactly.
last 2 days, like, that's probably not great. Or even a $100,000 house, it doesn't matter. But anyways, my point is that we don't want to show everything. And that's where you have the professionalism, because you almost want it to be like someone knows just a little bit about you. Like, even I want to think of this, like, think of like your favorite people that you follow on Instagram. Like, maybe it's Nesting with Grace, maybe it's Pretty on Fridays, maybe it's Mallory Irvin. You're not seeing everything they're doing. You're seeing a little tiny splash of it, but that little tiny splash is enough that you feel like you know them so well. Like, which is crazy, because they're sharing so much. And this is where it gets really strategic. They're sharing so much of the same thing over and over and over. And I call this like creative redundancy, or being strategically consistent, whatever you want to call it. Both of those are very big mouthfuls of words, but you're just being consistent with the story that you're sharing. So again, for me, I a lot of times share a sneak peek of our morning routine, or that we're going to the coffee shop for our Friday coffee date. Like, it's that same thing over and over. And the reason that that makes you feel like you know someone is because it's like a story. It's like when you watch your favorite show, if all of a sudden 1 week there was a completely different cast and they were in a completely different location and house or set, you'd be like, wait, what is this show?
Right.
Like, this is not right. This is not what I tuned in for. But because you have this level of expectation, it feels like a comfort. It feels like you know it. It feels like you know exactly what you're going to expect. And that's what we want our social media to be. So we don't need to share the whole story. We don't need to share everything about our kids, every single thing they do. We need to pick an angle and we need to run with it. And maybe
Yeah.
for you, you're like, well, I have no idea what that would be right now. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to kind of help you figure out.
Exactly.
Oh, I forgot. I was supposed to do a commercial break and show you that the new Abby Jimenez book is out. Say You'll Remember Me. And it just came in my Amazon box right before this episode. And I am dying to read it so badly that I'm holding it during the whole episode.
This podcast episode sponsored by Abby Jimenez.
Well, I'll have to DM her to find out. But
That's hilarious. There's our ad for this episode. I love it. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
speaking of regularly scheduled programming, when you do something that's outside of your comfort, redundant content, I love saying, like, if I'm on vacation, I love being like, okay, now back to your regular scheduled programming. So, like, it's not that you have to have the same thing all the time,
Right.
but you kind of have like a routine with it. And what that does is it makes what you're doing really easy to do. You're just sharing whatever is happening anyways, and you're not trying to figure out, like, is now a good time to film? Like, you're just like capturing the in the moment once in a while of that same like repetitive thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which kind of leads me to the next thing. And we kind of touched on it a little bit, but like there's been a whole like movement going around on social media about not sharing your kids' faces on Instagram or on social media in general. And I think everyone has their own reasons for whether they choose to or whether they choose not to. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer. The only thing that I will say is I feel like if you kind of want to go more of that like faceless route and make it kind of less about showcasing them, I actually think that kind of helps you share things from, like I said before in an episode, like share things from your motherhood and not their childhood. So kind of like what you're saying, like from you sharing things from like a CEO mama standpoint, that doesn't mean that his face is never in your content, but it's not like, here's Henry's 6-month photo, here's your 1-month photo, like none of that stuff. It's more like he's playing over here while I'm working over here. And I think it helps keep your brand cohesive and keep your content cohesive instead of just like random photos. I mean, I see it all the time. Like we'll follow agents or agents will follow us and I'll look and I'm like, I would have never guessed they were an agent because it's nothing but family photos. And again, we love families, we love kids, we love motherhood, all of those things. But if you share more from that specific angle and you have a little bit of that like mindset of like share less of their faces and more of like my perspective, I think it's going to make your content more powerful.
It's going to make your content better. This is the difference. You could share all about your family, and then you could have another account that was like all new listings, just sold, whatever. And someone might be like, oh yeah, I saw you list a lot of houses and city name. But like the times that's going to happen are going to be so limited compared to the amount of opportunities you have to connect when you blend them together. And like that's kind of what we're getting at with all of this is the blending of it. And when you blend it, you're thinking like a marketer. You're not thinking like a mom who's sharing just family photos or just vacation photos. And you're not thinking like just a robot real estate account that just share, like you're not the MLS. Like this is your Instagram account, and Instagram is a social media app. So you're socially on here. You're not on here to put the sales pitches out. So I think like almost that shift to this is the blend of it. I don't need to share all, or it's not like an all or nothing thing. It's like a little splash of both. And that's when you become relatable. That's when it doesn't feel like the motherhood stuff takes over and your account is now unprofessional. I think if you really want to have like a scrapbook of sorts of photos of your kids, but then in your branding, you don't choose to show their faces, then just have a private account. Don't give it any thought other than to post photos and ignore everything else about it. And that's fine. But then your focal point of like, again, you own a business as a real estate agent, like you own a business. And I think we need to take ownership in that and treat it like a business. And that means we need a marketing plan. And that means social media needs to have more strategy behind it than, I'm going to just automate this, or I'm going to just have pictures of my family and hopefully people know I sell real estate. Like there needs to be more of a strategy underneath. And that strategy doesn't mean it's complex or difficult. It just means that you have intention behind what you're doing. And that makes all the difference in the world. When you know why you're sharing what you're sharing, ultimately, like it's kind of asking yourself, like you can almost run it through a filter of who is this post for? Why would this make sense in my personal brand? And if you can answer that question and that answer makes sense, then it can go.
Yeah.
When we go back to like that is such a perfect example of like we probably aren't sharing like the 1 month photo, the 2 month photo. That doesn't make sense because that feels like it's for like your personal scrapbook,
Right. It's something that you need to text your mom and like, or in your family chat, and like it belongs there. Or if you have like a private Facebook account or something. But we have to remember, as real estate professionals, when we are choosing to market our business on social media, that social media account is no longer our personal account. Like even if it is our personal account, it's not our like diary. If we really want to get clients from this, if we really want to be memorable and stay top of mind to get referrals, like we have to treat it like a marketing strategy, not like a scrapbook. And so, so I think there's ways to do that. And again, it's not to say there's never anything. I remember like Levi broke his arm last year during football season, and that's not part of my content, right? But it was also like, hey, this is what's going on. But then I don't know, like those kind of things too. It also sparked conversation. And there's ways that you can do that too. I know like my girls do some of the funniest things too that I'm always like sharing about, but all of it is through the lens. Like I feel like if most people looked at like my account, they wouldn't first see like, wow, she's a mom of 4 kids. Like they would see like she's a creative marketer who does these things with real estate agents and all of that. And then as you are probably listening, or even like, have you ever done this where you're like recording yourself talking about something and then you play it back later and you're like, I didn't notice he was yelling in the background. Or like my kids will be like yelling and playing. I don't even hear it when I'm working because I'm so like in the zone. But then later you're like, oh, they were there. Like, and so your people are hearing those things and recalling like, oh yeah, she is a mom.
100%. I was just scrolling back because I was like, oh my God, I posted Henry's 1 through 5 month photos on my Instagram. So I'm like, okay, so with all of this, there's no one direct path. There is no right or wrong answer. And there is like, if you posted your 1, 2, and 3 month photos of your kid, that doesn't mean your account makes no sense and that whatever. Again, coming back to like, okay, what are we getting at here? What is the intention behind this? Maybe for you, you do share stuff like that, but then you don't share other things. Like it's having that balance between the two that makes it make sense. So if you're the kind of mom that wants to share that stuff, go for it. And I think about too, like people that I followed before they were a mom, like many of you listening probably followed me before I was a mom. It almost becomes part of your journey. And that's like a good way to think about like, why would it make sense to share this? Because before I had kids, like I wasn't sharing about being a mom, but as that happened, I kind of documented parts of my pregnancy and through that process and then having him, and then you have a new baby and all you want to share about is your new baby, and that's okay.
Yep.
Like it has this like warm fuzzy feel as you're figuring it out, but that's kind of part of your journey if you think about it. Your journey is like, now I'm a mom. What do I do here? Like what am I going to share as part of this brand? And knowing that the people that are following you, like if you have built a community on Instagram, which is what you're going to do through this style of social media, through this way of marketing, that's when it makes sense, because people are going to care about seeing that your baby was born, and they're going to care about seeing that, the cute, look at my little 1 month photo.
Oh,
I did all these little
H's for
things.
Henry. That's so cute.
I know, and his little stuffed
Yep.
reindeer.
And isn't that so funny? Your people do want to see that. It's not, and that's why I feel like, yeah, we have to be careful how we say that, because it's not like we're saying like no one cares about your baby or no one cares if they got a tooth or slept through the night. But when you make it all about that, but then you're like frustrated that your business isn't growing, well, there's a disconnect there. So I think that you just have to kind of choose. And you know what? What stage of life are you in? I know when I did hair, like there was a while where I was like, I'm going to grow my business. I want to have my books full. I want to do all those things. Well, then my books were full and my clients had to wait 6 weeks to get in, and they would kind of start to get frustrated because they couldn't get in any sooner. And so I still talked about my business on social media, but I wasn't saying like, I have openings or, I want to try that. Like, I wasn't trying to like grow my business anymore. And maybe you're in a stage of life where like, you really can't take on any more clients, or you want to do more of like the transactional side of it, and you're working with someone else who's actually showing the houses and all that. I think all of those things are fantastic. I just think like documenting that too, and just continuing being mindful to still show what you're doing in real estate, even if there's not a lot to do right now, or even if you don't have a lot of clients right now, still taking the time to do that can make people like cause less confusion with your content as you
I have another
introduce
good
kids.
example too, because that's so true. I was just scrolling after I scrolled back to Henry's 1 month photo. I posted a picture of me and Henry, and he's a baby.
Aww.
And like, this is like new motherhood vibes.
Yep.
Like, so when you're first in this too, like you probably are going to be completely like just off your game. Like, I feel like even if you have a second, it's going to pop back faster, because you're going to be like, okay, like I know how to navigate this a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I posted, and here's an example of mixing the two. There is nothing better. Crazy when you realize you're living the days you prayed for so long. Feeling so grateful for the business I built and the incredible people on my team that have allowed me to truly enjoy these slow days with my husband and new baby. And I tagged you and Chloe and my mom. I told Mark that I feel like I'm on vacation, an exhausting one, but still a vacation. We've had lots of coffee, background shows on TV, Love Island UK season 5, lots of reading while feeding Henry, a few really good glasses of wine, all with the ambiance of Christmas tree lights. It's been a magical, semi-sleepless 6 weeks. God is good. Whatever. I would never post that today, but like that was like in my new motherhood, and it still tied into like, I'm figuring this all out and I'm really enjoying this slow time, and the team I've built. We are still running. We are still going strong.
Yeah.
But I've built my business to be able to do this. And I think like even pointing things out like that, like I don't think you need a whole post like still showing houses even though I had a baby, but as you share the behind the scenes of your life, and you set these expectations through the content you share, that happens naturally. Like people know like they're still going to be taken care of even if you are pregnant, or even if you just had a baby, or even whatever. Because I think sometimes it can come across as like, oh, she must not be working with clients right now because she just had a baby, if you're not telling them otherwise, right? Like, so sharing things like, these are the things I have set in place, and communicating with your clients. And that's what an email is just so amazing for. So go back and listen to episode 10, I think, if you want to.
I think it is.
Listen to how to build an email list. Like there's just so many things you can do to set yourself up while not making motherhood feel unprofessional.
Absolutely. Can we share like content ideas for moms who maybe like want to, in some capacity, have motherhood be part of their brand, whether it's a lot or a little bit?
Yes. Well, I actually pulled up one of our members, because I think she does a good job of like weaving motherhood in, Emma. I'll link this post in the show notes, but she's posted literally just a real estate girl who loves finding the best muffin spots in the 515 with her kids. And I believe this was like based on one of our Modern Agent posts. But the pictures of her two kids on like little bar stools facing the other way, so you don't see their faces straight on, and caption lists out their favorite places to get muffins. So in doing this, she is sharing motherhood mixed with real estate, mixed with local. So this is like a great blend of that content cocktail that we love to talk about. And I just think it's a simple way to have that little splash of motherhood, that little splash of local.
Yeah, that makes your content more unique because you're sharing your perspective, your kids' favorite things, and all of that. I think that's a genius idea. I would definitely do that. I think if I remember right, I think that I did this. Maybe it was just in my stories, but we would share the best parks in Columbia City, and I would like take my kids places, and then I would have them like rate them. Like, what'd you like about it? We have two big parks here, and one of them I always heard was like more for like toddlers and one was for big kids. And then when we went there, I was like, oh, I can see why. Like the equipment's totally different or the mulch is different or whatever. But like sharing things like that from their perspective is such a great way to like tie them into your local content and like make them part of your brand, especially if you're already out doing those things. You know, if you're already going to the park in between showings or clients or whatever, like document that stuff and share it.
And if you have a routine, you probably have some kind of a routine, even if you don't think you have a routine. So, kind of leaning into that routine and knowing, like, okay, every Thursday we do this. So, that's the day I'm going to share this sneak peek of motherhood. Or it can be as simple as dropping your kids off at school and sitting in the carpool line. I know a few people that do that, and it's very memorable. And it's like this little opportunity to have a conversation, to sit there with your coffee and share something simple. And it like brings that through. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I even think of like, maybe your like one of your boundaries is I always get my kids by 3 p.m. So you work super hard, you like share like you're killing it in your job, but your hard boundary is I pick my kids up by 3 p.m. or whatever it is for you. Or I eat dinner without my phone. My phone's off by 7. Don't worry. I always check if there's anything major going on with my clients. Like you can reassure people through that, but like sharing those things or
Yeah.
even like what are your like secret tools as a mom and local realtor that keep things running smoothly. Maybe one secret is you get your house cleaned. Maybe another secret is you have a great mother-in-law that takes your kids 3 times a week. Maybe another secret is that you have this like toy or tool or subscription or something that you love and you just share it. Like
Hmm.
those simple little things, they create so much connection and they just kind of tell your story for you without you needing to like explain a whole spiel on like here's why I do both or like,
Yeah.
you don't need to explain yourself.
Yeah, I think, like, from what you were saying, like, sharing almost like your mom hacks, but you can make them, like, house related. I actually had one that I used to share all the time where I would say, "We keep our kids' socks in our pantry," which is real weird, but our pantry is right by our garage door, and I would get so frustrated when I would tell my kids, like, "Hey, time to go," and then they'd all go to the door, and then I had to send them back upstairs to get their socks before we would leave. And I was like, "Why am I doing this?" So I would, like, literally put it there, and I would tell some people, like, as we would be showing houses, I would tell my clients, like, "Oh, there's enough room for, like, my sock baskets," and they would just, like, laugh, but I would explain to them, like, "Actually, this is how we do it," and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, like, why do we keep them upstairs?" or whatever. So, like, you can share, like, those little hacks, even if it's like, "I bought these hooks from Target and laid them down lower so my kids could hang up their stuff by the door," or, like, whatever it is, sharing that perspective as a mom agent is a cool way to like serve your community and attract those other like moms in your area that may be looking to buy or sell at some point.
I love those ideas. I also just wrote this down for a future like weekly marketing plan, but I saw someone do this like TikTok told me dot 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 or like Instagram told me like what's some like hack you got from Instagram that you love that you now use in your life. And that is even relatable in and of itself because
Yeah.
everyone's looking at TikTok or Instagram to get like ideas like that.
Yeah.
Other things you can do that I have written down are just like I love like a photo carousel that is going to share behind the scenes of your week. So you could call it like my camera roll as a city name, real estate agent, and mom of two, or mom to a
Mhm.
2-year-old, or whatever. And you share like a glimpse behind the scenes of like things you did that week in real estate and things you did that week as a mom or a family or whatever. And that's going to be the simple way to give that little splash. Like maybe one of the things is like you on your laptop, Bluey's on in the background. Maybe one is like your kid's in the back seat and there's like an accepted offer sign next to him. Like you can really mix it in that same content cocktail style where you're including both elements. Like you have the personal splash of like the motherhood, the kids, and you also have like we're going to
Yep.
put up the accepted offer sign or something like that.
Yeah, that's so good. I also like using parts of your motherhood and like showcasing it as strengths. I actually saw a reel and I hope I can find this to link it because it was really good. There was an agent who just had a new baby and she was driving in the car and her baby is just screaming in the back seat. but the hook on the screen said something like, not me freaking out about the current market because I hear freaking out in the car every time I drive my newborn somewhere. So like, I'm not scared or whatever. And a lot of people were writing her and saying like, oh my gosh, like I remember this stage, whatever. But like, you can turn those hardships of motherhood around and be like, this is what makes me a better agent. You know what I mean? And like upsell it a little bit and say like, if you see me struggling here, don't worry. I can negotiate with my 2-year-old. I can negotiate on a home offer. Like that's no problem, you
Yes.
know?
I love the relate motherhood to real estate in those funny, like approachable ways. Another way you could think about this is using motherhood as a metaphor for something or for real estate. Like selling your house is like raising a toddler. Here's why. Like not that, but that's just like a random example. Something like that, where you're kind of just using like, how can I make this make sense and like dumb it down and relate it to something that everyone can understand?
Yeah, for sure. And it is like just some of the most relatable things. I think another way that you can share something relatable and have it be a fun part of your brand without having to work so hard to like tie it back to real estate is just sharing funny things my kids said this month. And it can be like a carousel post of like just little quotes that are just kind of funny. I've even seen people like reenact what their kids have said and done that are just like funny, or getting on your stories and be like, well, maybe before I went to go out and show a house, I turned around and my daughter put my makeup all over her face or whatever it is. But just sharing those things, and it might not, again, directly relate back to real estate, but if you sprinkle them in intentionally, it could become almost like a signature series that you do. And it doesn't feel like such a reach to try to connect it all, you know?
The other posts I really like the style of that kind of just help you speak to your people are ones like, this is for the girls who dot dot dot. The ones who always knew they wanted a nine, like this is my own. The ones that always knew a 9 to 5 wasn't for them. The ones who wanted to build a business around their motherhood. The ones who understand the power of clean eating and living, but also love a cheeseburger from McDonald's every once in a while. Like you could take something with that, like that could be your framework, but you could spin it into like the girls who really want to turn a closet into or turn a bedroom into a closet, but they had 3 kids and they need the extra bedroom. Like that, like relatable mom content, but make it real estate, make it like house related, make it like the
Yeah.
thing they're thinking. Like one example I always used to use in my content was like, you're like running out of space and you're so sick of having one bathroom that you're sharing with your 4 kids that you're ready to book a cruise to the Caribbean and forget
Yep.
whatever, like forget motherhood.
Been there.
Just like something relatable, something very dramatic, like that's very dramatic, but it like sticks out. It's like, yeah, you probably had those like, oh my God, like rip your hair out thoughts.
Yeah. Well, even sharing, like, as you said that, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember, like, forever, my husband and I were like, our kids are not getting on our phones. We're not bringing tablets to dinner. We used to go out to eat all the time before we had all of them. And for the most part, we didn't do that. Like, they were like, good. Well, I remember actually, it was a couple years ago, my husband's parents both died within like a year of each other. And Levi was just like real little. I think I was pregnant with Caroline. And so they were real little. But I remember like we went out for dinner and Levi was just real antsy. And I was like, we have got to talk about like what we're going to do, like what are the plans, all of that. And so I think I gave him my phone. And I remember thinking like, everyone's judging me right now. Like everyone thinks this is just what we do, but no one knows like the severity of the situation and like what's actually happening. But I would like use a situation like that and then be like, I've bet like maybe share that story. Like I'm now the mom who gives my kid a phone at dinner, but I'm just here to tell you like I will never judge you. like like every situation is unique and you can't say anything to me that makes me like scared or jump ship because like I've seen it all. Like I've been, you know what I mean? Like I've been in those hard places. And so just again being like approachable. And that right there would be like such a great email too. Like you could maybe share like a snippet like on like if you would do like a recap or something on a carousel post, you could have that be like one thing where it's like, well, apparently now I'm the mom that does whatever. But then you could say in the caption, like go to my, or if you like sign up for my email list to hear like the story behind this and then share it in your email and like share the actual story and whatever, like things like that. When it's story driven like that, which I know we want to do a whole like story episode, but like when you share stories like that and stories about motherhood, stories about your kids, those are memorable. Like people won't forget that. People are much more likely to remember those cases and those scenarios than they are to remember what are the interest rates this week or like what happens with my earnest money. They don't remember those things. And so like lead with those stories and like your kids give you so many opportunities to share stories.
As you said that, I was like, this is an email.
Yes.
But I also read that people don't relate to stats and facts. They relate to people and stories. And that's why, like, anyone could see themselves in that, even if they didn't have the same scenario. There's a scenario where they might have chosen to do something they always said they wouldn't do for the sake of their sanity or for the
Yeah.
sake of whatever it might be. You know, like maybe like this is so like random, but like I said I would never give up my daily $7 latte to save for a house, but here I am, and now I'm in my
Right.
house drinking coffee out of my Nespresso.
Yep.
Like you could just, there's so many little tiny things you could spin that into that make it, again, you're not going to forget it. It's like a storyline you won't forget. And when you can tie that into, again, like you spin that into something about buying a house, you spin that into something about selling a house or the emotion behind it, or like you make it related to real estate in some way, which ChatGPT could probably help you come up with some ideas, then you're gonna not only share that story that's memorable, but you're also gonna have like a takeaway that they can like leave with that relates to what it is you actually do, which is sell real estate.
Absolutely. Um, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, what would you say? Like, how would you want to like leave our listeners feeling like encouraged? Like, how would you encourage them to find their way with balancing motherhood and their brand? Yeah, how would you do that?
What I would think about is what is a part of your week that happens all the time. Maybe it's simply your morning routine. Maybe it's a specific day of the week. Maybe it's juggling kids sports and your business or whatever it is. And like how can you bring just one thing into your story as an agent? So it can be that simply documenting from your story camera and sharing what that thing is every Thursday, or just that little snippet from your morning routine, or maybe you have like a really systemized dinner plan because you're like, we're so busy at dinner time between real estate and kids sports and whatever that this is where we get dinner, and you start just sharing that same thing over and over in your stories every week. And then I would challenge you to, next time you create a piece of content, to add something about being a mom to it. And that can just simply be in the title of like, this is a great place to start. My recent camera roll as a city name agent and mom of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And force yourself to kind of bring that photo drop to Instagram. And you can put little labels on each photo, or you could do like a caption that like bullet point style lists out like a little blurb of each one, like just what you've been up to lately. Or like the one I gave the example of Emma saying like, these are our favorite places to get muffins. Like what is something you and your family love to do? A local post could be a good spin. So to kind of like rewind and summarize, find something you do all the time in your life and motherhood that you can bring into your stories once a week. And then secondly, create a piece of content that brings the motherhood into real estate. So whether it's that photo dump or it is a local post of something you love to do, one of those things, pick one of those two to do this week. And it will just help you feel like, okay, this actually felt it came really naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it should come naturally to you because it is what you're doing every day.
Yeah. I think it's easy as we are trying to hustle and build businesses that we like love and are proud of. And even as we get excited about our business and excited about our brand, it's real tempting to look at our kids sometimes, or like even just our sweet little baby, and kind of think like, you're kind of a distraction. You're kind of getting in the way of what I'm trying to build here. And I know deep down, none of us actually feel that way, but like, it's not like the thought has never crossed our mind. Like, if you would just be quiet, I could get this done, right? But I also think what's so cool about motherhood is it like forces you to stop and to rest and to play and to like use your imagination and have fun. And like, if you are a person, whether you're a mom or not, but if you are a person who makes all of those things like rest, play, having fun, all a part of your like weekly rhythm, you are going to be a more magnetic brand. You're going to have a business people are going to want to be a part of because you're going to be a more well-rounded person. There's 2 books that I've read that I felt like shook my core as a mom. The first one was called Create Anyway, and it's in the joy of pursuing creativity in the margins of motherhood. But it's just like a really beautiful like book with lots of pictures and stuff in it, with just little stories and quotes about pursuing creativity and not being, even if you're not a creative person, but not feeling selfish for like making time for fun for you because it actually makes you a better mom. And then this one is called Until the Streetlights Come On by Ginny Urich. And it's all about like being outside with your kids. And even if you have to work or whatever, but like making that a priority. But like both of those made me stop and be like, okay, in the midst of my hustling to grow my business, in the midst of us growing the podcast, like doing all of those things, don't forget to like pause everything and go have fun, go do whatever, and then come back. And you're going to come back revitalized and like with a vision and with something that you hadn't thought of before. Because these kids of ours are not distractions. They're not getting in the way. If anything, they're going to, if we allow it, they're going to propel us forward and like get us there faster because we're going to be that much more focused and prioritizing our self-care. So don't forget to take care of yourself and have fun with these sweet little babies of ours.
I love that so much. And it's also a reminder to me that we all have the opportunity to make the decisions in our lives. And that's why you're doing this. You are in control of your own business. And this made me think of yesterday morning. I was getting ready for our content photo shoot for Modern Agent, and Henry really wanted to go downstairs and play. He loves going downstairs. And I'm like, my hair was wet. I still had to get ready. I still had to pack something for me to eat because it was a 2-hour drive each way. He had to get ready to go to my mother-in-law's. And I'm like, you know what? I'll let my hair air dry today. I'll go downstairs for 15 minutes and he'll be so happy instead of like rushing him around and, getting him out of the house and in the car. It's a long day for him to go to my mother-in-law's and it's a long car ride and all these things. And I just went down there and like my hair wasn't what I wanted it to be to get my B-roll clips at the photo shoot. And I didn't get like everything perfectly done that I needed to, but I'm like, but I spent that it was 15 minutes. And it was like I had the choice to do that.
Yeah.
Or I could have been like, no, I really need to dry my hair. I'm like, sometimes, yes, you're going to have to dry your hair. Maybe you're in the photo shoot or whatever. But it was like, I do have the option right now. And I am going to choose to just slow down and I'm going to go downstairs and play with him. And I think that's like my biggest why with my business. And I'm sure many of you listening can relate is you're creating your life you're creating your business around your life, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And that is like my number one driver and motivation in everything I do is like, I get to choose what this looks like. I get to design my life.
Yeah.
And so remember that as you make all of your decisions, because with this style of marketing, what we're really trying to accomplish for you and for anyone listening is for you to be able to build your business around your life. That you get to make your life what you want it because you are in control, not anyone else, not your broker, not cold Zillow leads making you jump when they say jump, like you are in control of things. And that is my other passion behind this.
I love that. Okay, well, that was a great episode. I hope all of you listening get the most relaxing Mother's Day ever. I hope you get the breakfast in bed and the foot massage and a nap or a trip to Target or whatever you want.
What are you doing for Mother's Day?
What's really funny is we actually have tickets to go see Nate Bargatze. So it's going to be like not about me at all, but it'll be like a fun date night out. We're going with a bunch of our friends. So that's what we're going to do. What about you?
I want to see him so bad. He's coming here in July, but I think we're going to be out of town for my friend's birthday, so I don't think I can go. But he's so funny. That's really fun. I have no idea. Typically, for the last now probably 10 years, we have hosted a big Mother's Day with my side, Mark's side, and my sister-in-law's mom and dad. And then it's even extended to aunts and uncles. And it's a huge thing. And I just told Mark, I'm like, I kind of don't want to do that this year. I'm a mom now too, and I feel like it's just, and he will handle the food and stuff, but it's just a lot of work. And I feel like I kind of want to do a more intimate Mother's Day with my own mom, and we can do something with your mom separate and not make it a big production. It's fun, but I'm like, let's do it for just a summer barbecue or so I think we're going to keep it more intimate this year. And I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I love to host. But when you host that big of a party, it's hard to make it really themed and pretty because there's just too many people to do a nice dinner table setting or a fun brunch. It's just, you have to kind of do buffet style and get it, whatever is going to happen. So I'm not exactly sure yet, but something more intimate, I think.
I love that. Very cool. Sounds great. Well, this was another fun episode.
Yep. I hope you all have a happy Mother's Day, and we will see you again next Tuesday.
Bye.
I'm so glad we got to hang out today. If you're as sad as I am that our time is up, I've got good news. There are a couple of different ways we can keep the conversation going.
First, follow us on Instagram at Modern Agent Marketing Girls and introduce yourself in the DMs. Also, we always have a free Modern Agent resource available. So check out today's show notes for the goods.
And finally, hang out with other go-to real estate girls like you and finally create a marketing plan that works when you join Modern Agent Social Club. All the details are in today's notes.
XOXO, the Marketing Girls.